Victoria Harrington adjusted her Prada sunglasses and sighed with irritation. The exclusive beachfront at the Malibu Beach Club was supposed to be her sanctuary, a place where she could escape the pressures of running Pinnacle Enterprises. As CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in California, she had earned this luxury, paid for it with 16-hour workdays and ruthless decision-making that had made her both feared and respected in Silicon Valley. But today, her peace was being disturbed by a noisy family that had somehow gained access to the members-only section of the beach. A man, clearly out of place in his faded t-shirt and cargo shorts, was attempting to set up what looked like a garage sale of beach equipment, mismatched towels, a cooler that had seen better days, and 3 children running circles around him, squealing with excitement. "Daddy, can we go in the water now?" The oldest girl, maybe 7 or 8, tugged at his arm while he struggled to anchor a beach umbrella in the wind. "Just a minute, Sophie. I need to make sure Emma and Jake have their floaties on," he replied, his voice patient despite the chaos surrounding him. Victoria watched with growing annoyance as the man fumbled with a bottle of sunscreen, trying to apply it to a squirming toddler who was more interested in eating sand than staying still. The middle child, a girl with wild curly hair, had already managed to kick sand onto Victoria's carefully arranged lounger. When her assistant returned with her sparkling water, Victoria didn't bother to lower her voice. "Can you please find out how these people got onto the private beach? This isn't a public playground." Her assistant nodded nervously and scurried away, but not before the father had clearly overheard. He glanced up, his eyes meeting Victoria's for just a moment before returning to his children. Victoria felt a twinge of something, embarrassment, perhaps, but quickly dismissed it. Standards existed for a reason, and she had paid a small fortune for her membership specifically to avoid the crowds and noise of public beaches. 20 minutes later, when the children's shrieks reached a new decibel level as they discovered a small crab in the sand, Victoria had reached her limit. She stood up, straightened her designer cover-up, and marched over to their chaotic setup. "Excuse me," she said, her voice carrying the same authoritative tone she used in boardroom meetings. "I don't mean to be rude, but this is a private beach for members only. The public beach is half a mile down that way." She gestured vaguely to the south. The man looked up, shielding his eyes from the sun. Up close, she noticed the dark circles under his eyes and the way his shoulders seemed to carry an invisible weight. The smallest child was now balanced on his hip, sticky fingers clutching a juice box. "We have a day pass," he said simply. "My friend Daniel works here and arranged it as a birthday treat for Sophie." He nodded toward the oldest girl, who was now watching the exchange with wide eyes, her earlier joy dimming. "A day pass," Victoria repeated, as if the words were foreign to her. "Well, perhaps you could try to keep your children a bit quieter? Some of us are trying to relax." She expected him to be intimidated, to apologize profusely as most people did when she expressed displeasure. Instead, he smiled, a genuine, warm smile that momentarily caught her off guard. "They're just excited," he said. "It's their first time at a beach this nice. We usually go to the crowded public ones, but today is special." He turned to the birthday girl. "Sophie, can you and your siblings try to use indoor voices even though we're outdoors? The lady is trying to rest." Sophie nodded solemnly, then whispered something to her siblings that made them giggle, but noticeably more quietly. Victoria stood there, suddenly feeling awkward in a way she hadn't experienced in years. She was used to people either cowering or becoming defensive when confronted. This calm acceptance was unexpected. "I'm Nathan, by the way," the man said, shifting the toddler to his other hip and extending his free hand. "And these are Sophie, Emma, and Jake." Reflexively, Victoria shook his hand. "Victoria," she replied, deliberately omitting her last name. The last thing she needed was for this man to recognize her and start pitching some business idea or asking for a job. "Nice to meet you, Victoria," Nathan said. "Sorry if we disturbed your peace. Kids don't really understand the concept of exclusive relaxation, yet." There was no bitterness in his voice, just a gentle humor that made Victoria feel even more off balance. Before she could respond, the youngest child, Jake, reached out toward her with sticky fingers, apparently fascinated by the sparkle of her diamond bracelet. "No, buddy," Nathan said, gently redirecting the child's hand. "We don't touch people or their things without permission." "It's fine," Victoria said automatically, though she was already calculating how much it would cost to have the bracelet cleaned. An awkward silence fell between them, broken only by the sound of waves and distant children's laughter. "Well, enjoy your day," Victoria finally said, turning to retreat to her lounger. "You too," Nathan replied. "And if we get too loud again, just wave. I promise we'll try to keep it down." As she walked away, Victoria heard the birthday girl ask, "Daddy, why was that lady mad at us?" "She's not mad, sweetheart," Nathan's voice carried on the breeze. "Some people just forget what it's like to be a kid. Everyone has different ways they like to enjoy the beach." The simple explanation, devoid of judgment or resentment, made Victoria pause mid-step. She couldn't remember the last time someone had given her the benefit of the doubt instead of assuming the worst about her intentions. Back at her lounger, Victoria tried to return to her book, but found herself repeatedly glancing at the family. Despite their obvious financial constraints, evidenced by the patched beach toys and the carefully portioned snacks Nathan was distributing, they seemed to possess a joy that had become foreign to her. Nathan was now helping the children build a sandcastle, his face alight with the same excitement as theirs when a tower successfully stood without collapsing. He took photos with an outdated smartphone, cheering their achievements as if they were constructing an architectural marvel rather than a lopsided sand structure. Victoria's own phone buzzed incessantly with emails and messages from her executive team, each one marked urgent, each one pulling her attention away from the present moment. She found herself envying the man's ability to be so completely present with his children, unbothered by whatever responsibilities awaited him beyond this day at the beach. As the afternoon wore on, Victoria observed the family's routine with growing interest. Nathan seemed to have an endless reserve of patience, mediating squabbles over toys, applying and reapplying sunscreen, and making sure each child felt heard and valued. He never raised his voice, even when the youngest had a meltdown over a wave that knocked him down. During one such moment, when Nathan was consoling the crying toddler, the oldest girl, Sophie, wandered over to Victoria's lounger, clutching a seashell. "Hello," the child said, her voice careful and measured, clearly remembering the instruction to be quiet. "Hello," Victoria replied, setting down her phone. "I found this shell. Do you think it's pretty?" Sophie held up a small, perfectly formed spiral shell, its surface iridescent in the sunlight. Victoria examined it with genuine interest. "It's beautiful. You have a good eye." Sophie beamed at the compliment. "Daddy says we should always look for beauty in small things. He collects shells with us every time we come to the beach, and we have a special jar at home for the best ones." "That sounds like a lovely tradition," Victoria said, surprised by the warmth in her own voice. "Are you here all alone?" Sophie asked, with the direct curiosity only children can get away with. "I am," Victoria admitted. "That's sad," Sophie declared. "Nobody should be at the beach alone. Do you want to help us with our sandcastle? Daddy says it's going to be the biggest one we've ever made." Before Victoria could formulate a response, Nathan appeared, looking apologetic. "Sophie, remember what we said about not bothering other people?" he gently reminded his daughter. "I'm not bothering her," Sophie protested. "I'm inviting her to not be alone." Nathan's eyes met Victoria's, a mixture of embarrassment and amusement in his gaze. "Sorry about that. She's never met a stranger." "It's fine," Victoria said, surprising herself. "She was just showing me her shell collection." "It's just this one shell," Sophie corrected seriously. "But it's going in our special jar because it's perfect." Nathan smiled at his daughter with such pure love that Victoria felt like an intruder witnessing something intensely private. "It is perfect," he agreed. Just like you. He turned back to Victoria. We should let you get back to your relaxation. Come on, Sophie, let's go check on that sandcastle. As they walked away, Victoria found herself calling out, actually, I wouldn't mind seeing this famous sandcastle. The word surprised her as much as they seemed to surprise Nathan. He turned, eyebrows raised. Really? Fair warning, it's more of a sand blob at this point. I'm sure it has artistic merit, Victoria said, standing up and slipping her feet into her sandals. Sophie grabbed her hand without hesitation, tugging her toward their setup. Come on. You can help with the moat. That's the most important part because it protects the castle from the waves. For the next hour, Victoria Harrington, CEO of Pinnacle Enterprises, found herself kneeling in the sand, helping 3 children dig a moat around a misshapen sand structure. Her designer cover-up was now spotted with seawater, and she had sand in places she didn't want to think about, but for the first time in longer than she could remember, she wasn't thinking about quarterly reports or board meetings or stock prices. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, Nathan announced it was time to pack up. The children protested, as children do, but he remained firm. We need to catch the bus before it gets dark, he explained, already beginning to gather their belongings. You took the bus here? Victoria asked before she could stop herself. Nathan nodded, not seeming embarrassed by the admission. Our car's in the shop. Again. But the kids love the bus, it's an adventure. Victoria watched as he efficiently packed up their things, giving each child a specific task to help. Even the toddler was responsible for carrying his own tiny backpack. Where do you live? She found herself asking. West Side, Nathan replied. It's about an hour by bus, but worth it for a day like today. Victoria thought about her own drive home, 15 minutes in her luxury SUV to her beachfront property. I could give you a ride, she offered, the words tumbling out before she had fully considered them. Nathan looked up, surprise evident on his face. That's very kind, but we couldn't impose. Besides, we're a bit sandy and sticky at this point. I insist, Victoria said, surprising herself with her persistence. It's getting late, and traveling with 3 tired children on public transportation sounds challenging. Nathan studied her face, as if trying to determine her motivation. That's really generous, but... Please, Daddy. Sophie interrupted. My feet are tired from all the walking and sandcastle building. Nathan's resistance visibly wavered at his daughter's plea. If you're sure it's no trouble. No trouble at all, Victoria assured him, though she was already mentally preparing herself for the inevitable sand that would end up in her vehicle. 20 minutes later, after helping Nathan gather their belongings and clean up as best they could, Victoria led the family to her Range Rover in the parking lot. Wow, Emma breathed. Your car is fancy. With some creative arranging, they were soon on their way. Nathan provided directions while distributing snacks to the increasingly tired children. I'm a high school English teacher, he told Victoria when she asked about his work. The pay isn't great, but I get to be with my kids when they need me. And their mother? Victoria asked, then immediately regretted the personal question. Caroline passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. Jake was just a baby, Nathan said softly. Victoria felt a knot form in her throat. I'm so sorry. As they drove, Nathan pointed out landmarks from their life, the park where Sophie learned to ride a bike, the ice cream shop they visited on special occasions. His world was small geographically but rich in meaning. When they reached the modest apartment complex, Victoria was surprised by how the contrast with her own luxury lifestyle didn't seem to matter anymore. Thank you so much for the ride, Nathan said sincerely. As the children climbed out, Sophie paused at Victoria's window and pressed her perfect spiral shell into her hand. This is for you, so you won't be alone, the little girl said. Oh, Sophie, I can't take your special shell, Victoria protested. It's okay, Sophie insisted. Daddy says the best treasures are the ones you share. Victoria sat in her car long after the family had disappeared inside, the shell warm in her palm. Something about this family had touched a part of her she had long buried beneath spreadsheets and power lunches. That evening, she made an anonymous donation to Westside Community High School's English department. The next morning, instead of checking emails first thing, she stood at her window watching the ocean, Sophie's shell on her palm, wondering how a man with so little could be so rich in all the ways that truly mattered. 3 months later, Victoria implemented a company-wide policy offering generous parental leave and flexible schedules for employees with families. When asked what inspired the change, she simply smiled and said, "Let's just say I was reminded that success isn't measured by what we have, but by how fully we live." And in her office, on the corner of her desk, sat a perfect spiral shell in a small glass case, a reminder that sometimes the most profound lessons come from unexpected teachers on ordinary days at the beach.